The first week of the first ever 12-team college football playoff is in the books, and boy, was that a doozy, folks. Thankfully, it's all over, and now the quarterfinals are almost upon us. Coming up on this edition of College Football Now, we will break down every game remaining in the college football playoff. I'll give you my predictions. We'll go over every round of every game, and I'll tell you who I believe is going to be hoisting that national championship trophy coming up in just a bit. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Before we go any further in today's show, though, quick plug, we will be live for every single game of the college football playoff, including the college football playoff quarterfinals. I'll be here for the Chick-fil-A Peach. Actually, I take that back. I will be here for the Fiesta Bowl between Penn State and Boise State. We will have others here for the Peach Bowl between Texas and Arizona State. We have the Rose Bowl between Ohio State and Oregon, the Sugar Bowl between Notre Dame and Georgia. Every single playoff game live right here on College Football Now by Chat Sports. Subscribe now for free. Let's get 20 subs off today's video, and make sure you guys join us for the quarterfinal round right here on College Football Now. Let's take a look back at the first round of the CFP, and it was just disgusting football to watch. I mean, my goodness, folks, this was bad. And, you know, I've heard a lot over the last couple of days of people saying we should celebrate the sport, and, you know, we're not helping anybody by going after the committee and saying that these teams didn't deserve to be there and all that. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything, folks. Last week was an embarrassment for college football. Texas beats Clemson by 2 scores. SMU looked horrendous against Penn State. Indiana was just atrocious. They were, just flat-out frauds. They scheduled their way basically into the college football playoff. Nonetheless, had a very good season, their best season probably in school history, but they didn't belong. And then Tennessee was just a joke in their matchup against Ohio State. They brought, 40,000 fans there and gave them nothing to show for. These games were just a debacle of the system, to say the least. But nonetheless, we move on. Here is how the updated bracket looks now as we head to the Rose Bowl presented by Prudential, as Oregon will take on Ohio State on New Year's Day. Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl will feature Arizona State and Texas. The winner of those 2 games will then meet in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl in Arlington. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bracket, you get number 2 Georgia taking on number 7 Notre Dame in the All-State Sugar Bowl. And then number 3 Boise State takes on number 6 Penn State in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. The winner of those 2 games will then face off in the Capital One Orange Bowl for the right to go to the national championship. I'll give you my national champion pick in just a bit, but want to hear from you guys. Who will ultimately win the college football playoff national championship this year? Get your predictions in the comment section and let us know who you think is going to win the title or not. All right, let's start with the Peach Bowl between Texas and Arizona State on New Year's Day. The Longhorns coming in off the win against Clemson, while Arizona State, the Big 12 champions, they had the week off. And I got to tell you, this to me is a fascinating matchup between these 2 teams. Texas on paper, obviously the more talented team, but Arizona State has a lot of momentum. We've seen the way that Leavitt has really come along at the quarterback position. Cam Scatterbo looks like one of the best running backs in college football. Arizona State, big underdogs, 14-point underdogs, over-under set at 41.5. I'm calling an upset here, folks. I like Arizona State to get the job done against the Longhorns this week. Texas, I feel like they haven't played a complete game of sorts, that this entire year they haven't played up to their potential. Well, Arizona State's been the complete opposite of that. They have risen to the occasion and played above their talent level. And I think Kenny Dillingham right now is a better coach than Steve Sarkisian at the moment. Cam Scatterbo, I think, is going to go off and have a big day. It is Scatterbo time. I think that Texas is going to struggle trying to slow him down. I think it's a close game, but give me Arizona State to get it done and win the Peach Bowl there. Let's move on to the Rose Bowl between Ohio State and Oregon, a rematch of arguably the best game of the college football season earlier this year when these two teams squared off back in October. It was Oregon that got the best of Ohio State in a home win. Ohio State comes in as favorites despite losing the head-to-head matchup after the big win that they had against Tennessee. They're 2.5-point favorites. The over-under set at 54.5. I'll say this. I really like the way that Ohio State responded after the loss to Michigan and how Ryan Day answered the call with people questioning his job and whether he should be the head coach there or not. But even with that said, I think Oregon gets it done again. I like what Dylan Gabriel has done this season. I think that this team is very talented, both sides of the ball. Dan Lanning looks like one of the best coaches in all of college football. To me, this is the most complete team in the country. When you look on paper of everything they do, when it comes to speed, size, strength, athleticism, both in all three phases here, to me, I think Oregon's going to be tough to stop. I got the Ducks to get it done in the Rose Bowl. Let's shift gears now to the Fiesta Bowl between Boise State and Penn State. The Boise State Broncos, the champions of the Mountain West Conference. Penn State coming off a very impressive win against SMU a week ago. Penn State 10.5-point favorites. The over-under set at 52.5. Boise State has had some magical moments in the Fiesta Bowl over the years, whether it was the win with the Statue of Liberty play against Oklahoma, whether it was beating a top-5 team in TCU, Arizona a few years ago as well. The stage has never been too big at the Fiesta Bowl for Boise State. Penn State, meanwhile, James Franklin has yet to win that big game of sorts. He struggled in these stages in the past. I'm going to call for the upset. I'm going with Boise State to beat Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl. I think Ashton Jeanty is by far the best player on the football field. I don't really trust Drew Aller at all at the quarterback position. I think Ashton Jeanty has done a good job when what we've seen just throughout this season. I really like what we've also seen from Penn State when it comes to their offensive coordinator, Andy Kolaniki. I think that offense is greatly improved, but I just can't trust Penn State. I like Boise State to get it done here. Let's head to the Sugar Bowl now with Notre Dame and Georgia. Notre Dame, a very impressive win this past week against Indiana, a game they dominated in all four quarters, taking on a Georgia team that had a couple of weeks off here, coming off an SEC title. And the thing for me that makes Georgia so interesting, I have Georgia winning this game. I don't think Georgia's played to their full potential yet this season. We saw them lose to Alabama early on in the year. They did get the 2 wins against Texas, but you struggled against Georgia Tech. You struggled against Kentucky. Obviously, they lost to Ole Miss as well. Now, as we head into the playoffs, Kirby Smart's been there, done that. I think Georgia gets the job done, and they get this win in what I think should be a very competitive game between these two teams. And I'll say this. I know that the Bulldogs are going to be without Carson Beck, that he will not be playing in this game and potentially could be out for the entirety of the college football playoff. But what we saw from Stockton coming in for Carson Beck, he played just as good, if not better, than Carson Beck. And the team around him, they all stepped up as well. So to me, I think with knowing that they need to rally around their quarterback, Georgia's going to put their best foot forward here, and I expect Georgia to get the job done. Who do you got in the All-State Sugar Bowl? You going with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, or you going with the Georgia Bulldogs? Type ND for Notre Dame. Type UGA for Georgia. Get your predictions in the comment section and let us know who you think is going to win that one. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. It is the holiday season, and Prize Picks has got you covered these holidays, folks. They are offering you up to 1,000 times your money. Yes, you heard that right. All you have to do is pick 2 or more players in any given category. Get the choice of more or less, whether you're talking fantasy points in football, rebounds in basketball, goals in hockey, all sorts of different categories to choose from. Go to prizepicks.com/SaleItS, promo code SaleItS. And with Prize Picks, folks, they will give you $50 to spend for free when you play $5. You don't even have to win to get the money. Go to prizepicks.com/SaleItS, promo code SaleItS. I'm looking ahead to some of the playoff action here. Give me my guy, Ashton Jeanty. They have more than 19.5 receiving yards. Also going with Drew Aller to have more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Play along with me. PricePicks.com/CLNS. Promo code CLNS. The link is in the comments and the description of today's video. All right, now let's shift gears, shall we, to the semifinal matchups as we go from the Rose and Peach and Sugar and Fiesta down to the Final Four, which includes the Goodyear Cotton Bowl as well as the Capital One Orange Bowl. Let's begin with Oregon and Arizona State in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. This game would take place in Arlington, Texas. Oregon, the champions out of the Big Ten. Arizona State, the champions out of the Big 12 just a year ago. They were fellow members of the Pac-12 conference, but a lot has changed in the college football world since. To me, this is interesting because I think this is where Arizona kind of meets their match of sorts. Arizona State meets their match here. As to me, as much as I've been impressed with Arizona State, I think that Oregon's got too much for Arizona State to try to hang with. And one key for the Oregon Ducks this playoffs, an advantage that they have compared to everybody else, they have the best quarterback in the college football playoff in Dillon Gabriel. And we've seen Dillon Gabriel have a very good track record of stepping up in some of these big games. I think that Oregon gets it done here, and they get a win over Arizona State there in the college football playoff semifinal to advance to the national championship. Then in the Orange Bowl, we get Georgia taking on Boise State, this game in Miami on Thursday night. And this would be potentially 2 games under the belt of Stockton taking over the quarterback position if Carson Beck's not back. It would be coming off a big win for Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl, which I would think would be a big game for Ashton Jeanty. But you think about this. Boise State, their strength is running the football. Georgia's defense's strength is stopping the run. And this is where push comes to shove, and I think Boise State meets their match here. Look, Boise State did an incredible job going toe-to-toe with Oregon at the beginning of the season. And you could argue they could have beat the Oregon Ducks. But I am hard-pressed to envision a scenario where Boise State can win back-to-back, where they can beat Penn State and they can beat Georgia both. I expect Georgia to win here. To put it simply, Georgia's got too many dogs for Boise State to compete with. I think that there's just way too many good athletes on the field for Georgia for Boise State to have much of a chance in this game. I would expect Georgia to get it done. Before we get to the national title game, let's go ahead and ask you in the comments section, we didn't see any upsets this past week in the first round. Will there be an upset before it's all said and done? It's got to happen at some point, right? Who will pull an upset in the college football playoff? Weigh in. Give me one team that you think is going to shock the world here in the coming weeks before it's all said and done. Weigh in the comment section. Let us know. So we get to the national title game, the Georgia Bulldogs and the Oregon Ducks. I'll be honest, before the season, this was my national championship game prediction. I said it was going to be Georgia and Oregon for the title. This would be a de facto home game for Georgia, getting to play in Atlanta for the 3rd time this season. They opened up there against Clemson. They played the SEC title game there, and now potentially a national title game here. Dan Lanning, of course, going up against his former team. He was the defensive coordinator at Georgia. His very first game as head coach at Oregon was against Georgia in that very building and got blown out. But things have changed a lot ever since. With that said, I think this is when Georgia's good run finally comes to an end. I think Georgia would lose to Oregon in a national title game. And it's very rare that we say this about a Georgia team, but this is a bit of a mismatch here. Oregon has an advantage compared to Georgia when it comes to speed, strength, athleticism, all those things. Oregon is the most complete team. They are not the finesse football team that we typically think of when we think about an Oregon Duck football team, historically speaking. Dan Lanning has found a good balance of still using speed, but still having strength as well. This is not a finesse football team. This is a legit Big Ten football team that can go toe-to-toe with the best of the SEC in Georgia. I think Oregon wins the national title. Appreciate you joining us here on this edition of College Football Now. Make sure and join us for our college football playoff watch parties right here on College Football Now. Subscribe for free. YouTube.com/ChatSportsTV. I'm Tyler Jones, and we'll see you next time.